Well, today's project, my 2006 Dodge Ram 2500 Cummins turbo diesel. Cylinder head's cracked, I believe. I drove this to my doctor, went in for surgery, got out of surgery, went to start it up, and it has a bad misfire. As soon as it started misfiring, I checked the coolant, checked the oil, didn't see anything, thought it was an injector. So when I first did it, I thought it was one of the push rods that come off number 6, either the exhaust or intake, because that happened before for just some random reason. Don't know why, but I was just driving down the road, wasn't getting on it or anything, and just pop, 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 pop. So I thought that's what happened. So we pulled the valve cover off and verified that was not it. In the meantime, when I was messing around with it, I looked at the exhaust manifold and noticed the exhaust manifold had a crack in it. And it was shooting coolant and fuel out of it. Originally, I thought it was an injector, but then I started noticing that the coolant level was dropping. Now, there's no combustion through the radiator, and there's no combustion getting into the crankcase, so that tells me it's not a blown head gasket, it's more than likely a cracked head, and these Cummins motors are really bad about cracking the heads on number 6 because of an inadequate coolant flow to the number 6 cylinder. It's a very well-known problem with these. It's an issue. There's a couple of aftermarket solutions to it. The one that I think is probably the best bet is the Fleece Performance coolant bypass. Below the cylinder head on the rear of the block, there's a freeze plug. You knock that freeze plug out. You bolt in this adapter for the from Fleece, this little thermostat housing they make. It's got a thermostat in it, and then it runs a hose from there up to the front of the motor. And whenever it gets hot in that side of the engine, it opens up and creates coolant flow that at number 6 helps out and reduces the pressure in that side. I can tell you from my personal experience on Cummins 24 valves and 5.9s, every single one I've ever had an engine problem with, it's always cylinder number 6. For me, I understand that there are different ones out there. You know, you guys probably have different experience, but majority of the time it's cylinder number 6 that has most of the problem. So I think my head's cracked, but I need to pull the head off and get it off, get it on the ground, look at it, and I actually have a brand new head coming from Fleece Performance. Fleece is sending me a Street HD cylinder head and have done a tremendous amount of research on rebuilding these cylinder heads, making sure they're right. Once I get the head off, I'll show you the differences. When a new head gets here, I'll compare them side to side. I'm going to talk with Fleece, one of the guys at Fleece, and he's going to explain all the differences and get that on video and everything. But let's get the head off. But before I get the head off, I have a personal favor to ask you guys. My son Caleb, one of his friends, he actually met him at school and then started doing jiu-jitsu with us. And then he and this kid named Paxton became really good friends. And Paxton is such an amazing kid. And I always have this rule. And to me, that if your kid's an amazing kid, that means that I'm probably going to really like the parents because the parents have done a really good job. I got to meet Paxton's mom and dad, Kelly and Michael, and they have been fantastic. There's very few families out there I can drop my kids off with and not worry about anything happening to them and know that they're in good hands. This family is definitely one of them. They ran into some hardships the beginning of last year or last couple of years. Paxton's mom has been battling a tumor, several different health issues, but she's got a tumor and it's a brain tumor, and she's just been really, really struggling with it. They've been struggling with the medical bills for it, and so I'm asking you guys, I'm going to put a link down in the description for their GoFundMe. Now, this GoFundMe has been going on for a couple of years now, so if you see the amount, don't think that, oh, well, they just got all this amount. Like, this is a struggle, and they've had to travel to Arizona, they've had to travel to Houston several times, and she's had to do a bunch of different testing and everything. And unfortunately, our medical care system just leaves you in massive amount of debt if you have any problems like that, at least here in America. So I'm asking for your guys' help. Click that link down there, hit the GoFundMe, and if you guys could throw a couple of bucks their way, I would really, really appreciate it. It'd mean the world to me. And I just love to give them guys as much financial help as they possibly can get to where they're not in debt. And when they have to travel, like they just recently had to travel to Arizona, they can use that money to travel there and back as a family and not just have to send Kelly off by herself to do things on her own or go in tremendous amount of debt. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Hit that GoFundMe. I think I'm probably going to find something that I have here that I can give away. I don't know what it is yet, but stay tuned. Go ahead, and when I do it, whatever I give away, I'm going to say, hey, if you guys go over to the GoFundMe and you put, whatever the tagline will be in the GoFundMe comments, then I'll get your names. I'll put them in a selective randomizer and then draw something. But I don't know what I'm going to give away. I've got some things in storage. I've got some scan tools. I'm not sure, but I want to make sure that we get them as much help as possible. Okay, so we're pulling the cylinder head off. The very first thing you're gonna have to do is drain the coolant. Got no coolant in there. There's a drain valve all the way. You can barely see it way down there. That's all the coolant that I actually drained out of it. So it was definitely pretty low. Spit most of it out the exhaust. I'm going to go ahead and pull, our first thing, I'm going to disconnect the negative side of the battery on each one. You got two batteries. Pull this air intake off. Pull the intake elbow off. Pull the PCV valve, or the PCV system off, and that little guy there. Disconnect the harness, get the harness out of the way, pull the valve cover, and then start working on the under valve cover harness to get it out of the way. Once we do that, then we'll start unbolting all the rockers. We get all the rockers out of the way, push rods and everything. Then we'll be ready to pull. This already has studs on it, so I need these are 12 point, probably 14 millimeter ARP studs. Spray those down with some lube, pull all the nuts off, and then I'm actually replacing the exhaust manifold on this one. These stock exhaust manifolds on the 24 valves and the 12 valves have a really bad tendency to crack, especially right around there where all the heat comes in together. So I'll be replacing it with this DPS. This is a high flow improved design. You have a couple of ports there that you can put pyrometer in. You pull it out, stick your pyrometer in there. So it's really nice to have that. I don't have a pyrometer on my truck, but I plan to get one eventually. So we're gonna install this. I'm actually gonna get online and order some studs instead of bolts, and an exhaust manifold gasket set. I've had a couple of comments asking how come I'm not doing like the how-to anymore, like the pull this bolt, this bolt, and this bolt, because it's a pain in the butt to do it with my phone. I don't have a tripod set up for my phone, and cell phones only record about 10 minutes at a time, and I'm really bad about setting it up and forgetting about it, and it just stops recording. Or it just stops recording because you get a text message or something, and I don't know. But the camera that I used to use, it's beyond repair. You can tell how that body is bent. The port for my microphone that goes in there is busted. The entire frame is busted on this guy, and the little Boss stabilization, see if it'll come on. Yeah, battery's probably dead. The little stabilizer in there is messed up too. And so I can't just set my camera up and point it in one spot. I have a couple of GoPros. GoPros are such a pain in the ass, I just don't want to use them. That's why I haven't been doing like the point and shoot and set up and show like time lapse and everything. But I'll go ahead and get this broken down a little ways and we'll go from there. Well, I got everything off. And by everything, I mean the fuel rail, all the fuel lines, the injector and diffuser tubes, whatever you like to call them, the turbo, the exhaust manifold, the valve cover, the boots, I'm leaking a little bit of oil in there. All that stuff, the rocker assembly, the injectors, the push rods, the studs, the rocker assemblies, and all that. I'm gonna wash that in the old CRC smart washer. But we are ready to pull. So I've got everything out, got my chain set up, and these freaking cylinder heads are really freaking heavy. You can do them by hand, but you know, why bother when you got the right tools? All I gotta do is pull it up and set it on the ground. I'm gonna put my little Dodge diaper underneath it over there, so when I pull it out, it's probably gonna leak some coolant and stuff out of it, but that's to be expected. As I say, nothing left to do it. Nothing left to it other than to do it. Oh shit. Well, it ain't supposed to look like that. Well, that is a drop valve seat. What that is. rest of them look okay, but you can also tell that, see how that valve is higher than the rest of them? That's what they should look like. Should all be on the same plane. So that means number 6 got too hot. That valve seat ended up dropping down, probably after a good long heat soak. Could be an injector number 6 problem. I don't think so, just because I had a problem with that exhaust valve before, that rocker bridge coming off. Back in December, that rocker bridge popped off, and I figured there was something wrong going on with it. I just put it back together, hope for the best, and it lasted for quite a while, for several months. But something I'm questioning here is, I know this head was replaced because it's rusty. But when Mark got this, he had Holden Brothers Diesel install it. And from what I can tell, those guys do pretty good work. But this is supposed to be a performance head that he paid for. And so far, the only thing I can see that's performance is the cost. Now, every manufacturer is different, every machine shop's different. But on these Cummins head, there's only a couple things that really make it a performance head. One, larger, thicker valve springs. Screw-in freeze plugs that are in the valley, oversized valves on the higher horsepower, 1,000+ horsepower ones, and larger valve seats, like they cut new valve seats and put them in it. I'm not really seeing anything on this one. That is regular press-in freeze plug. I can't tell by looking at the valve springs, but I mean, that's for size reference. As soon as the new head gets here, I'll have to compare them and see. But the main deal is, I don't think those are oversized valve seats. They look like just regular old factory valve seats. So on the top of that piston, what you're looking at is that cylinder got really hot. It got so hot that the ring, the end gap in the ring touched, which seized that ring to the top. And when the engine pulled it down, it actually just broke off the top of that piston and went through the exhaust. I haven't actually looked at the turbo. Turbo looks okay. That cylinder number 6 is scored, which means the block has to come out, be machined, new pistons, new rings. Got a new cylinder head coming for it, so that'd be some of the cost down. But a rebuild kit's around $1,000 for a rebuild kit plus machine work. Is more than I have in the budget for it, so that really sucks. I don't know what I don't know what caused what on this truck. Like I said, the whole history of it is when I got it running in November and December, driving down the road, not toying on it, not doing, throttling it, or not hot rodding it at all. That particular valve bridge popped off, and it caused me to think that maybe it's like a stuck valve stem, and it was binding in a little bit. Something was wrong, but like I said, I put it back together and it started up and it sounded fine. And then I hot rodded it after that and not had a problem. But then it said again from May 1st of June until 1st of September, or middle of September, at the transmission shop. Got it from the transmission shop, and then this happened. So I don't know. I don't think it's an injector issue, because I swapped when that valve bridge messed up. I swapped that number 6 injector to number 1, and it still ended up being a problem on this one. So we're pretty sure it was an injector issue. My thought process is probably something wrong with the machine work that happened to it. That valve guide, valve seat wasn't done right, or somebody adjusted that valve and they didn't adjust it quite right. So it's really the only things that can cause those. You're not going to pop the top of your piston land off like that unless you have an overheating problem in that cylinder, unless it gets really, really hot. And the only thing I can think of is that valve, that exhaust valve wasn't closing all the way, so all the exhausts have to go out in one exhaust, because you got 2 exhaust valves per head, and that causes it to really heat up. At least that's my thought process. I'm curious what you guys think. Some of you guys that have more experience with the Cummins 24 valve heads and engines, I'd really like to hear your takeaway on it. You know the history of it. I think this truck had this head put on it at 189,000 miles, 190, something like that. And then it's got 205,000 on it now, so it made it about 15,000 miles before it really shit the bed. Anyway, I'm gonna get my floor cleaned up, get that dude off of the lift, and then call it a day. So I had another ending in this video, and I'm still pretty upset that this engine is messed up now, and now I have to pull the engine out. I had a crossroads with this truck. I can either sell it as is and maybe get 500 bucks for it, or just pull the engine out, slowly piece it together, rebuild it, and just buy components as I can, and then put it all together, and I'll have a brand new transmission and a brand new engine. It would beat buying a whole nother truck, but there's been a whole bunch of financial disasters for me this year. You guys that follow me know that I've gone through a divorce, I lost my shop, transmission problems, girlfriend problems, all kinds of other stuff. And I can just play the blame game, but a lot of it, at the end of the day, a lot of it was my own fault. I have been going to church a lot this last few months, in the last 4 or 5 months specifically. Ever since the beginning of the year, this year, I started going to church, I started getting more active, and right around June, July this year, I started getting really active. And something that I think the pastor said at the church I go to, something I read or heard, was talking about sometimes when you're going to church and you're getting your heart and your mind right with God, and you're on that path, God's going to throw trials at you and tribulations, and you're going to have a lot of sin pop up to try to derail you from that path. I don't know if it's, the Satan doing it, or sin, or if it's a trial from God or whatever, but you'll have all of these little hiccups and setbacks to try to get you to quit. And I think that's what's happening. As all this stuff goes on and it just keeps coming up, it's trying to get me to quit, because I'm supposed to do something else. I'm going towards the goal of where I need to be. And all this other stuff that's going on, like this cylinder head and the engine and everything, is just a trial for me to go through until I get to the point that I'm supposed to be at. So all I have to do is persevere through it and not quit. I could sit here and lick my wounds and say, oh man, this engine's going to cost, thousands, but it'd be a good YouTube content. I don't have any other projects going on. I no longer have my shop. I am working for myself, so Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday rather, I'll have projects going that way, but it'll be a good video series, and I'm sure you guys would appreciate to watch it. So instead of looking at a negative, I'm just looking at it like this is one more thing that life's going to throw in my way to try to prevent me to getting where God wants me to be and where I need to be. I'm going to keep on leaning towards God, and then knowing that God's going to take care of that engine for me. He's going to take care of that truck for me, and He's going to take care of everything else for me. Always has, and He always will. So I can be negative Nelly all I want, and it's still, it's upsetting that I'm going to have to spend so much on his engine and everything, because I was really looking forward to getting this truck running. Because I got the old green service truck, but as much as I love that truck, it's got 350,000 miles on it, and it's been a hell of a truck, but 120,000 miles that I put on it, it's probably about time for something to go bad on it too. And I'll deal with it when it happens. I hope that's a positive message for some of you guys out there. If you got things going on in your life that, especially if you all of a sudden started going to church and you've all of a sudden started praying or reading the Bible and, hanging around with Christians and everything. If you've been doing that for a couple of months and it seems like as soon as you did that, oh my gosh, all this negative stuff happens. That's just sin creeping up, trying to pull you down and make it to where you don't continue on the path you're going. It's trying to throw wrenches in the gears and derail you catastrophically. But just keep persevering, keep putting in it, keep looking at everything as a positive. Everything is a trial. There's negative trials and there's positive trials. And something a lot of us do is when you have something positive happen in your life, it's tough to sit back and thank God and realize like, oh, well, God, He created all the positive trials in my life and your life to teach you and mold you, but He also gives you negative things that happen in your life to teach you and mold you into the person that He wants you to be, and to get you to the place that He wants you to be at, where you're supposed to be at. It's not where I want to be at, because where I want to be at is going to end up in the middle of sin, somewhere doing something I'm not supposed to. So we'll see what happens. I don't think I'm going to sell the truck. I would rather just park that truck at my buddy Tim's if he'd let me for 12 months if I need to, and I'll just pay him for storage or whatever, park it somewhere else, and I'll pull the engine. I'll just buy all the stuff I need for it just over time. Maybe some sponsors will come through, maybe not, don't know. But I hope you liked the video, and remember that no matter what the deal is, the negative stuff going on, turning around into a positive. There is a positive for this engine breaking, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I'll video pulling that engine out, and I'll get a good thumbnail and title, and I'll get 1 million views off of whatever. And that's where I actually make money on the deal, because I've been really fortunate and really good at turning negatives into positives and creating YouTube content out of it and making it to where it works out for me. So, hope you liked the video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and instead of get out and fix it, just get out and pray for something.